Hey everyone, welcome to another time limit audio edition. Today we're going to be going through New Japan Pro Wrestling's third night of the Road to the New Beginning tour. It happened on Wednesday from Korakuen Hall in Tokyo. There was a pair of really interesting matches happening at the top of this card, plus some undercard matches that we'll go through. A lot to discuss over the next few minutes, and I'm happy you're joining me for this quick little reaction podcast. We're just a few hours removed from the show. I just finished watching it, got my notes together, and we're going to go through it. This is a weird case of the co-main event, in my opinion, being more notable than the main event. So we're actually going to go straight to the co-main event before talking about the final match of the night, which is what we usually do. And the co-main event was the Never Openweight six-man tag team championship match. We saw the team of Kazuchika Okada, Tomohiro Ishii, and Hiroshi Tanahashi, who have had their belts for quite a while, face the team of Kosei Fujita, Mikey Nichols, and Shane Haste. This was a match where I personally, heading into it, had the expectation that Okada, Ishii, Tanahashi were going to drop the belts, most likely because Okada is leaving New Japan in just a few weeks now. This ended up actually being a win for Okada, Ishii, and Tanahashi, and they vacated the belts after the victory. Now, I when I first thought about that booking decision, I was a little on the fence about it. This was a match where I see three guys on the New Japan roster in Fujita, Nichols, and Haste who haven't been given any big opportunity yet. And especially for someone like Fujita, who, Nichols and Haste are two veterans who, have been in New Japan for a while. They've been in Japan for even longer. Fujita is someone on the rise who is really great in the ring and has a lot of potential. I thought it'd be fun to give him a sort of small deal bout like the six-man tag team titles here and, make this a little push, especially beating a very prolific team with Okada, Ishii, Tanahashi. They decided to give the Okada team the win and let Okada have a big moment, his probably final big moment in Korakuen Hall. And you know what? After watching this match and seeing how it played out, I actually am not against this, and I'll explain more of that in a moment. But I the outcome of open weight, never open weight six-man tag team match actually isn't a big deal, so it's not something I'm too bothered about. I think that this was a match where even though TMDK lost and Chaos won, I feel like this was like a great showing from everyone. So let's get into the match. One thing that I noticed is, something I've noticed since Saturday when New Japan first aired it was their first show being aired since Okada's departure from New Japan came out. There's always been like since the news has come out, like a special buzz around Okada matches. Everyone knows he's leaving soon, so everybody wants to sort of give him that extra cheer and what for some fans is probably gonna be their last time seeing him before he heads to wherever he's going next. But the atmosphere tonight, especially in this title match, was really electric and it was really uh just great. And Korakuen Hall is such a great venue for having that sort of buzzing atmosphere, but tonight was just on another level for the Okada match. They were chanting his name during the entrance, super loud. What I thought was great about this match, it went 22 minutes in total. The first 6 minutes it was all Kosei Fujita taking on the team of Okada, Ishii, Tanahashi, and we saw a lot of Fujita later in the match as well. I think the amount of Fujita that we saw in this match really helped sort of put him over in a sense and give a really strong spotlight to him. And he's someone who, even if you're not going to give him those title victories, give him these big moments in the matches he gets that can really put a spotlight on him. For example, if he's going to be in the New Japan Cup in March, I don't want him to he doesn't have to make a run, for example. Uh, it would be great for him to get like an upset win or something, but he doesn't have to make a run. But one thing I do want to see if he's in that tournament is want him to have really solid matches where he gets a lot in and he really, stakes his claim as a tough guy on the roster. So we saw, like 6 minutes of him from the start. He t took on a few different guys from the Chaos trio or the Okada, Ishii, Tanahashi trio. Um, there was a near fall. Fujita late in the match had a near fall where he scored a deadlift German suplex on Okada, and That I think that was a really fun tease. And there was, you know, some really good teases earlier in the match of TMDK possibly winning with Nichols and Hayes doing a double team move that made it seem like they were gonna score a victory, especially with the timing of how it happened and everything. But that's not how it happened. I think it was good that they really tried hard to tease a TMDK victory because for people like me, I was wrong about my prediction, but I had a pretty I was pretty confident in my guess that this was going to be a TMDK win, especially since recently New Japan has been making their leaving wrestlers drop their belts. It ended with Okada scoring an elbow drop and then a rainmaker for the win. It was nice that he got the pin. It was nice that he got the win. I was wrong about the outcome, but I think this was overall a really good match and the best part of the evening, honestly. Okada was able to get a speech in the ring before his departure from the venue. He was emotional, crying. It was a nice moment. He mentioned that he was vacating the belts. And overall, I really enjoyed, you know, seeing Okada have this moment in Korakuen Hall because as much as seeing him work these tag matches and seeing that buzz around him and having him do this thing where after the match ends, he comes into the ring and, you know, greets the crowd one last time and his theme plays. All that is nice, but it's one step further to have this moment where he can defend a belt, have a long match, score the pin, and have that moment in the spotlight since he's going to be leaving soon. Okada leaving New Japan is such a big deal considering how much he did for the promotion, how much he has accomplished while in the promotion. I can only imagine that if he left on less of a short notice sort of timing, his departure would be even a bigger deal. It would be much more of like a uh, Okada farewell tour, which we have a makeshift one sort of put up with this match and the match against Tanahashi, which has been booked for next month. But you know, it is a little last minute the matches they put together for him. But I can only imagine if he had if he had notified New Japan January 1st that he was going to leave at the end of January, we would probably have a whole tour built around him. So that was the co-main event. I have a lot of positive things to say about that match. Amazing atmosphere, great match, and even though there was one team that won, I thought it did everything played out well with how everybody was represented. It does kind of sting that Nichols and Haste, who've been in New Japan for a few years now, still have no belts to their name. I was looking at their profiles earlier, and it's kind of wild that even something small like the six-man titles have never been thrown on them. But I guess when you're a tag team specifically, like when you're strictly a tag team in New Japan, it kind of does leave you with only a few options of belts you can win. The main event of the evening was the sort of payoff match between the rivalry of Shota Umino and Ren Narita. This rivalry is, I mean, this is one of those rivalries where similar to Yuya Uemura and Yota Tsuji, it's just going to carry on forever and ever and ever. But this was the match where I was really hoping we would get that Shota Umino victory and payoff because recently he has just been so so buried in the promotion. He's lost so many matches. He's just sort of been everything that House of Torture have wanted to do, they've done to him. So I was really hoping this would be a great match for him to go over. He did go over, and that was the right booking decision here. I certainly agree with that. I wasn't too incredibly like praising of this match. It went 33 minutes in total, but a lot of that felt kind of flat. The sort of closing sequence to the finish was enjoyable, but there was a solid amount of time where I was just like, they're wrestling, it's whatever. The crowd's not really into it, and it's just not a huge deal. So the real pickup of the match came around 30 minutes into it. And I put in my notes here that House of Torture did their run in at 30 minutes, which is like a sort of eye-rolling thing. But before that run in, the 30 minutes we got was just like I just put sleepy. Like I just wasn't too engaged in it. House of Torture did a run in, and they were doing a beatdown on Umino, but then all of a sudden the lights went out. Tamatonga, who we're going to be seeing leave New Japan very shortly, came in for the save. He, you know, did some work on House of Torture, but the numbers weren't in his favor, and he got beaten up. El Desperado came in there as well, and they eventually were able to take out House of Torture. With all of them out of the way, Umino and Narita continued to wrestle for a few more minutes, and it ended with Shota Umino scoring a German suplex on Narita for the pinfall victory. This was almost like if you took yesterday's main event, which was El Desperado versus Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and compare it to this one, they're almost like opposites. They were both House of Torture, like you can draw parallels, but there's also like key differences between them, which make one match much better than the other. When Yoshinobu Kanemaru and El Desperado faced off, there was interference, shenanigans from House of Torture, and that wasn't too much fun. But it's just sort of what you expect with House of Torture matches. But what made that match so great was, they went 20 or so minutes, and it was a very engaging, fun match between the two, and that's what made it enjoyable. I've seen, I was very so-so about it on yesterday's pod, mentioning that, as much as I enjoyed the in-ring, the House of Torture stuff does take away from it, blah blah blah. And I relatively enjoyed it. I've seen since then that the public reaction to it's actually been pretty positive. So I feel like I was almost a little more negative than a lot of people, which is surprising for House of Torture matches. I feel like a House of Torture match, the instant reaction is like 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10. I was seeing, like I think I was looking at Cage Match just earlier, and it was like the match was sitting around like a 7 or something, which I was genuinely surprised by because seven's a pretty decent number for a match that has House of Torture stuff. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make here is yesterday's match was a House of Torture match where there was shenanigans and there was stuff like that, but the in-ring part of it genuinely made it good. This was a House of Torture match where they had the shenanigans and they were able to get some momentum, but the in-ring of it didn't save it from the shenanigans sort of lowering the stock of it. Like sometimes you can have a good match because the wrestling sort of makes you want to look past all the run-ins that you're so sick of seeing in House of Torture matches. And I just didn't really get that here. There was some fun sort of uh, rare spots earlier. They went brawling into the crowd in Cork and Hall in the stands. And Ren Narita was thrown through a table, through that was a table that was right at the top of a staircase. That it was stairs that led to the exit in Cork and Hall. So he went through the table and then rolled down the stairs a little. Ren got his revenge later on, putting Umino into a table at ringside as well. Besides that, the wrestling in this match I just wasn't very interested in, and 33 minutes. You got to really know how to build a match when you're going that length, and I just think these guys lacked that. I do want to reiterate, I appreciate that Shota won this match, especially since how much momentum Ren was given in the build up to this. But I just didn't feel a lot coming out of it. So that was the main event of the evening. The thing I said yesterday, which I will bring up again today, and I also said it Saturday, these shows aren't like huge deal shows. A match like this kind of like flopping, in my opinion, isn't the end of the world. This was a non-title rivalry, which was just sort of built recently. I don't see it as a huge deal that this match wasn't too great because this wasn't a massive card for New Japan. This wasn't like a one of the special cards that we get once a month or something like that, or like a finale, tournament finale show where you would expect these big matches to come from. This was just a show. It's okay, it's obviously not great, but it's okay to have a whatever match like this in the main event. And that six-man tag team championship match was great. And I think that if anyone is going to watch a match from this show, it has to be that co-main. I think the main event, it's pretty skippable. Shota gets his get back against Ren, and that's kind of the only notable thing to come of it. The co-main event really was a great moment, and I do recommend people watch it. Okay, we're gonna quickly run through the undercard for the show. It was a pretty busy undercard, with a total of 7 matches, including a pre-show bout that they did. As we usually do, we're gonna go in descending order. So the match which came just before the title match is what we're gonna talk about first. So the two highest tag matches before the big bouts on this card, we're both working similar programs in that we have previously seen the Los Ingobernables de Japón and Just Five Guys teams work like 10-man matches. This time around, things were split up, so we got some rivalries sort of sectioned off into two different matches. The highest build match of those two was a pairing of Doki and Sanada versus Hiromu Takahashi and Tetsuya Naito. This was a short but really sweet, fun match for the undercard. I really enjoyed this, as I did the Just Five Guys versus Lij match before. This one had a fun upset finish to it, because we had a Doki getting the pinfall win here, and he was able to reverse a roll up pin. He was able to reverse a finisher into a roll up pin for the victory, and he won against world champion Naito and former junior champion Takahashi. So I like the sort of small rivalry we're getting between Doki and Takahashi, and obviously we're getting that Naito Sonata build happening as well. I don't have too much interest in that Naito Sonata rematch. I was like I've written before on the blog, I was really hoping that we would get that Wrestle Kingdom match and then we could just move on. It would be the start of Naito's new era. He could find a rivalry with someone else and go from there. We're not getting that. We're getting Naito and Sonata in a rematch again, which is it's whatever. Like I've said before, not really an interesting part of the year. So if they're gonna do a sort of less interesting title rivalry, I guess they can do it here. That's not a vote of confidence from me, but that's just how I feel about it. In the match before, we had Bushi, Shingo Takagi, and Yota Tsuji beating Taichi, Taka Michinoku, and Yuya Uemura in 10 minutes. There was the finishing sequence here was that Shingo hit a pumping bomber on Taka Michinoku, the guy who is expectedly going to be taking the finish in this match. Shingo followed that up with a power bomb to get the victory. Uh, Yota Tsuji and Yuya Uemura, their rivalry is kind of, to me at least, was the highlight of this match. They continued to brawl after the bell. Yota was beating up on Yuya Uemura outside the ring, and he sort of continued beating him until they went to the curtain, and then he threw him backstage, which I thought was a little funny. I really like those two. I like seeing their encounters in these tag matches. I want to see them in a singles match again. They're just both totally money in my opinion. We had another match between the teams of Bullet Club War Dogs and Unite Empire, a 10-man tag match. The same teams that we saw yesterday and on Saturday. So it was Alex Coughlin, Clark Connors, David Finlay, and Drilla Maloney and Gabe Kidd facing Callum Newman, Francesco Akira, Great Khan, Henare, and TJP. Very fast match, ended in just 6 minutes and 15 seconds. I was expecting a brawl around the ring, and that's kind of what we got here. I mean, the match was able to keep order enough that we got a real winner of the match, but there was lots of fighting around the ring. The finish was Connors catching Akira with a spear to get the pinfall. Yeah, I have in my notes here, whoa, quick, because I thought this was a really fast match. And I guess the reason it was a fast match is because they left some time after the bell for somewhat of a brawl between these two. So as I've mentioned before, they're doing the right thing with this build, just trying to make these two teams seem as hectic and chaotic as possible because they are going to be in a cage match. Makes sense. Cool. Match before then, House of Torture's Evil, Show, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Yujiro Takahashi face El Desperado, Tamatonga, Tomoaki Hanma, and Yo. This was a 10-minute match. I think I already mentioned that. It's a 10-minute match. Tamatonga got his own entrance for this match, which I thought was a nice touch, considering this is, I don't know where we are in the end of his New Japan run. This could be his last night, or maybe he has one or two more matches, but this was certainly one of his last matches. So he got his own entrance, which was a nice touch. This was a match where House of Torture picked up the win. The finishing sequence, I didn't like this. Tomoaki Hanma was in there with Evil, and he landed a legitimate headbutt to Evil. Like you can watch on video, you can see their heads clashing. I am so anti shoot headbutt. It disgusts me. It looks awful. Well, here's my thing. It doesn't even look good, and it's, you know, also painful and dangerous and all that. I'm just not big on it. And the headbutt in this case was just kind of like used for a throwaway spot. So Hanma landed, like, we're talking about an undercard tag match. Like, this is not where you should be doing stuff like this. Maybe it wasn't an intended actual headbutt, because I know Hanma does a lot of fake headbutt stuff as well. But anyway, he landed a legitimate headbutt onto Evil, uh, and then Evil was able to sort of, in a sequence, get his momentum back and score the Everything is Evil, his finishing move for the finish. There's this phenomenon that I've noticed with House of Torture matches where it's like the crowd will be into it while they're hoping that their team that they're cheering on wins, but then the second House of Torture wins, the crowd just goes absolutely silent. We saw that again here with the finish just under 11 minutes. The second the finish came, crowd went absolutely silent. We had a six-man tag match before Taiji Ishimori, Chase Owens, and Kenta defeating Ryusuke Taguchi, Jado, and Hikuleo. El Phantasmo was supposed to be on this card, but he has a illness and he was out, so he was replaced in this match by Ryusuke Taguchi, which made Taguchi, Jado, and Hikuleo kind of a weird trio. I mean, that's not a. You look at that trio and you're sort of like Hikuleo is the champion there, but like besides that, Jado and Ryusuke Taguchi, it kind of just seems like Hikuleo was thrown in there with two random guys, and I guess that's really kind of what the most fair description of it would be. This was another quick match, 6 minutes in total. Ishimori escaped a submission on Jado to land a roll-up pin and get the victory. Makes sense that Ishimori, Owens, and Kenta would win this match against Taguchi, Jado, and Hikuleo, I guess, since that's a pretty underpowered team. I don't really have much to say about that. Uh, since TMDK were 3 of the 4 members of TMDK were booked in the tag match higher up in the card, that really didn't leave much for Zack Sabre Jr. to do. So they booked Zack Sabre Jr. in a singles match against Tiger Mask. That match went 6 minutes 30 seconds. Uh, Zack Sabre Jr., as you would expect, got the victory. There wasn't too much to say about this match, honestly. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was just a short thing there to keep Zack Sabre Jr. in action. We had a pre-show match with 3 Young Lions and Toru Yano. So we had Bolton Oleg, Sho Makato teaming up and defeating Katsuya Murashima, apologies, and Toru Yano. Oleg is really fun. He scored the pinfall victory in this match. I really do enjoy seeing him. I haven't gotten too much of a feel for Kato and Murashima since they're 2 very new young lions. We just saw them work their first singles match a few days ago, I think. Bolton we've seen since January of last year. He's still kind of getting his footing in New Japan as a young lion. We haven't seen him work a ton of matches because they started him really slow. Like he worked like a 5 minute exhibition at Wrestle Kingdom, and then we didn't see him for months, and then all of a sudden he started working matches slowly, like late last year, I think. I really do like him. He's strong. He really shows that in the ring. He has this really big build to him. It's very enjoyable. Um, so I do like him as a young lion, and I'm looking forward to see what he's like. I'm also looking forward to see Shomakato and Katsuya Murashima when I get a better feel for what type of wrestlers they are. We're gonna keep watching them and see how they sort of flourish and what they become. So that was my review of night 3 of the Road to the New Beginning card from New Japan Pro Wrestling that went down this Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning if you're in the US or Canada like I am. This is the last show we're going to be doing for a little while now, mostly because, not because New Japan isn't doing shows, but they're not televising them per se. The next show which we're going to be covering is the February 4th show, so that's a week or so from now. The main event of that card is going to be a rematch from Wrestle Kingdom as Francesco Akira and TJP face Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship titles. This will also be at Corkin Hall, another sort of low-key show. It's going to be partially building to that 5 versus 5 cage match, and if that match doesn't convince you, they're building to it. The undercard does, because they have David Finlay facing Callum Newman, Jeff Cobb against Alex Coughlin, and Gabe Kidd against Hanare. So we're gonna be back for that. That's gonna be our next podcast, a reaction podcast. However, we are gonna have some written stuff coming out on the blog in the coming days. I'm gonna figure out some sort of uh, editorial things I can put together to reflect on these shows possibly, or the big headlines around New Japan. And I really want to find time and watch some more TJPW and write a TJPW story soon. So if you want to catch that writing stuff, head to timelimit.substack.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to give it a like if you're watching on YouTube, or just share the link to the page that has the video on the Substack link if you're listening through there. I'm going to get going. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you soon.